Welcome to the Stacked Investing Podcast, where real estate meets real life. I'm your host, Greg Farricielli, bringing you the latest in investment, health, and mindset. Stay stacked. Welcome to today's episode of the Stacked Investing Podcast. I'm super excited to talk to Rick Souza today. He's the owner of Castle Haven Investments. He's been investing since 2011, doing single families, rentals, vacation rentals, motel, sports bar, and really what I can't wait to get into is his acquisition of the mobile home parks and the RV parks. Rick, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming in.
Hey, thanks, Greg. I really appreciate it. Not bad starting a Monday with a little podcast time.
No, it's definitely not.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, tell me what is Castle Haven Investments? What do you guys do? What do you invest in? What does it look like?
So Castle Haven Investments is a multi-unit investment company, and I've always done that for the last two or 3 years, but I haven't exactly branded for that. So I was like, what, I'm doing this consistently, successfully. Why don't I brand this and branch out and start bringing in investment partners to some of my projects and scale a little bit more accordingly. So that's kind of where Castle Haven Investments came from, and it's really taken off pretty quick.
What assets do you guys mostly invest in?
Anything multi-unit, but in order of what I would prefer, it'd be mobile home park, RV park, and storage units.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So mobile home parks, RV parks, and storage units.
Yep.
Now, why do you choose those over multifamily? Because everybody talks about multifamily syndications. It is kind of a buzzword right now. I'm just wondering what your pivot is and what we can learn from that.
It seemed like, I don't know if it's specific to my area in North Idaho, but it just became very trendy to buy multifamily or duplexes and triplexes. And I got into a few of those and running the numbers, and I couldn't even come close to making them. I couldn't force them to get the returns that I was seeing out of like mobile home parks. In addition to that, you don't have, 27 water heaters in a 27 unit mobile home park because, as long as they're tenant owned homes, you just own the land underneath.
Okay, well, that's great because I was going to ask you that because I'm semi-familiar with the model. I know some people that they like to eventually get the units owned by the owner, maybe the owner finance them the unit and slowly just only have lot pads. What does that model look like to you?
That one actually looks pretty easy on the mobile home park I have in Tucson. So that one's a smaller park. It's got 16 units total. It's got 3 units occupied by park-owned homes, and those 3 homes, they're in okay shape, but I don't want to own them, so I'll just sell them to the tenants living in them for, say, a couple $100 for a couple of years, and just essentially give them to them almost. And you'd have to put in there to not let them move them right away. You sell it to them for pretty cheap and have them pick up and leave, but basically put them on a lease to own contract and say 3 to 5 years.
Okay, so put them on a lease to own, they slowly pay it down. So once you put the lease to own on it, does the ownership transfer to them right away, or do you wait to the end of that rent to own period?
I would wait till the end of that rent to own period. That way, they don't actually have ownership of it and be able to pack up and leave, right after you give it to them on a good deal.
So who pays for like maintenance and stuff within that period of time? Is that the owner or is that you?
That would be the owner, the tenant.
Okay, so they're responsible for repairs and whatever renovations and
correct
clean up and
yeah, I suppose they would own it, is other than they just can't pack up and leave, right after getting them on a note. They have to remain in the park.
Gotcha. So they have the note to whatever terms to keep. So they don't have full ownership. They have equitable rights, but they don't have full rights yet.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So why is that? I'm sorry.
Ahead.
I just wonder why that's an advantage to you to do that. If you can get lot rent and rent from a mobile home park, why they're
so the advantage, one
I'm
of
gonna
the
start
advantage.
over
Yeah, go ahead.
because that my stupid phone went off. Let me put that on silent.
Yeah, same.
So what is the advantage to you owning the mobile home park? Why you can get a lot rent, you get a mobile home rent. Why would you want to own or finance that to them? What is the advantage of the owner?
There's a couple advantages. I'd say the first one, in my opinion, the biggest advantage is not having on that, I'll just use my park as an example. It's a smaller
Please.
park of 16 units. I would prefer not to have 16 units to have to maintain, roof leaks, furnaces going out, all of that. So to get that liability off of me, but it also gives the tenants a sense of, a pride of ownership too. It can, where they own it, they can do what they want with it, they can take care of it. They don't feel like they're putting money into somebody else's unit. The other advantage to not having park-owned homes is when you go to refinance, say you get a deal on owner terms, which is the one I've got right now. When I go to refinance through the bank, let's say half of them, or let's say all of them are park-owned homes. They don't take any of that income into consideration when you do a refi through a bank. They only
Why
take into
is it because it's not real property, or is it considered real property?
It's because it's not real property, and I haven't actually done the bank loan to refi out of them because I've always done owner terms and then sold beforehand. But when the time comes, I don't want to be stuck with all those park-owned homes trying to do a refi. And a lot of investors don't like to work with them either. Equity partners, they have a pretty strict limit on how many park-owned homes that they want in their projects.
Really? So I get,
Mhm.
so what the banks are underwriting is really the lot rent. Is that all they're taking into consideration? Well, like, how do they underwrite that?
I believe it is just a lot rent. And like I said, I haven't been through one personally,
Sure.
but based on, my investment coach and networking with other people, they say, try to keep the park owned homes to a minimum and you'll have a lot less problems.
Interesting. Okay. So pivoting from that, it looks like that you're into RV parks. Explain like what the difference is. I think I have an idea, but I want to hear what you think the difference is between the mobile home park and an RV park, besides the type of non-real property that's on there.
Yeah. I wouldn't say, in my experience, that one is particularly better than the other so far. I just got into the RV parks because I had a background in hospitality, owning the motel. I owned a 14-unit motel in North Idaho. So I already had the experience of the turnovers and, the nightly rates and the seasonal, somewhat of a seasonal use. So I just had the experience there. That's kind of how I got into that. But I mean, one of the big major differences is having that turnover. You don't have necessarily consistent rent 12 months out of the year.
Sure. So the RV park, is it more for vacation, people vacationing in these campgrounds, or do people actually live in there as well?
About half and half so far of the projects I've looked at. So
Okay.
they'll utilize it for just seasonal use in the summer, nightly rates, and then in the off season they'll put like industry workers in the area that need a place to stay. Maybe we'll section off a spot for say between 5 and 10 long term or midterm uses, which really helps level out um, the cash flow throughout the year.
Okay. So the people in the mobile home park, they owner finance you the RVs, you owner finance them the RVs. Do the
Mhm.
people with I mean the mobile home parks, people with the RVs, do they own them as well, or is it the same model?
No, it's a completely different model as far as that ownership goes. They all own their own RVs. They bring them in there. It's funny, actually. This is the first RV park that I've seen where the RV park owned two RVs and they rented them out, and that'll be probably the first model that we get rid of.
Right. So there's
Yeah.
no Airbnb pricing that makes sense, I guess.
No, not really, and especially with RVs. I mean, there's so much that can go wrong with them. It'd be a high liability as far as I'm concerned to have an inventory of RVs.
Well, I guess that makes a lot of sense because the mobile homes, they don't move, but the
Right.
RVs, they need to be operational so people could. Well, I guess if you're keeping them there, they necessarily don't have to, but there's definitely a lot more to fixing an RV than just somebody lives in
Yep.
a home.
Yep. Pretty much anything that says RV on it, any of your appliances, they're going to be twice as much as your traditional residential. So we don't really want RVs in our inventory.
No, I totally got you. So,
Yep.
is there any tax advantages that are different between mobile home parks and RV parks that you know is, and I guess another layer of this is, are they syndicated the same, or is the model the same for the investors? How does all that work? Tax and syndication.
The tax situation, it seems to be pretty even, side to side. And also the model that I put together, for what I'm offering my investors is almost identical.
Okay, so it's the
Yep.
same model. So Is it the same as like an apartment building where you have to have your securities license and have a 503B offering or anything like that? Or is it more, is it easier? Different? Is it different, I guess is a better word.
Well, I'll have to say it's different because I haven't actually I haven't dove into the multi-unit as far as big complexes, so
Sure.
I wouldn't even know what those would require. But I haven't applied any of that to these projects.
Yeah, I assume they would be different because you're getting part of a partnership against real estate. In one of the cases, looks like you're just getting a partnership and part of the land on the mobile home parks and stuff like that.
Right.
What types of returns do you see generally for an investor? If I was going to invest into your deal, walk me through like what your pitch deck would roughly be like. Hey, another part of this is, do you have a deal that you'd like to pitch? I'd love to hear the terms of that. And then what type of returns you're seeing as an owner, and what type of
Mhm.
returns the investors are seeing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to go over those terms, we'll just use the ones on the RV park in Idaho. It's in Mackay, Idaho. The park sits on 5 acres. There's 32 sites, 30 RV units, and 2 cabins. So it sits on 5 acres, but it comes with an additional 45 acres, which wasn't even taken into consideration during the underwriting. So that's kind of a bonus. We don't know what we're going to do with that quite yet. But on that deal, I structured this one almost identical to everything else. I'm giving investors 15% interest paid monthly. The terms negotiable anywhere from 2 to 5 years, however long they want to stay in, with buyout option if they need their capital back, with a time frame, of course. But also with that one's seeking 300,000 total, and we're giving 40% equity.
Okay, so the LPs get 40%, the GP's gonna get 60%. You're
Yep.
paying, is that your 15, or is that just the return?
No, that's just the interest paid monthly on capital invested.
And do those investors get to take advantage of depreciation and you said the equity, do you also do depreciation on these?
Yes, I can. So that's actually a great question. We're going to do a cost segregation on this one. And I already have a few other projects that I can pull my depreciation for my taxes. So
Mhm.
when I do a cost segregation on this one, I can essentially give all of the segregation to the partners. They can have it all because I won't need it.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. So I want to ask a question. You said that the last one you had has 43 acres you don't know what to do with. That kind of
Mhm.
brought to my attention, are there ever opportunities where you're buying these mobile home parks? Sorry.
You're good.
Huh? No, I'm on this line. But thank you, Even my gate and everything, I didn't even, um, we were asking about, this is all gonna be edited.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
here's a question. You said you have 43 acres you didn't know what to do with. So I'm wondering if there's any opportunities with these type of parks that you can do like a covered land play, meaning you have the usage for the mobile home park as it is, but it's maybe in an area that's favorable to maybe rezone the property or add some density. So when you sell it for that new value, which is usually over the mobile home park, to maybe, I don't know, it could be a development that high rise. Do you ever come across any covered land plays with your mobile home parks or RVs?
I haven't yet, but that's an interesting topic. I'd love to keep an eye on that, especially with this one having 45 extra acres.
Yeah, I mean, I would, because then that could be a value add just to sell and develop that. We had one in Nashville, and I think it was small. I think it was 9 or 11 trailers on there, and we did a covered land play. We rezoned it for townhomes, and we exited like significantly, seven
Mhm.
figures on this park for, compared to maybe the 2 or 300 grand, maybe 400 grand it was worth in
Right,
just mobile home park usage.
right, right. And I think this one in Idaho with that extra 45 acres, it'd probably be best for some smaller homes, maybe some townhomes, or even a mobile home park. Because I know after speaking with the locals, there's a huge demand for housing in the area.
Oh, so maybe that's something you could do your whole big property together, sell off a
Yep.
little bit, phases, a lot of different
Right.
things. It's super
Right.
interesting. And I would assume that would be more for a mobile home park and an RV park. Or RV parks, in my experience, very limited experience on this, the zonings are usually different. The regulations are usually different. It's usually like an on-site type of office, and it's more of a business ran than people live there. So a lot of times they're in areas that are really not purposely not suitable for adding density. So these parks kind of keep their usage grandfathered in theoretically.
Right, right, which is great for this one that it is already on two separate parcels. The park's on 5 and the extra 45 is separate.
Wow. So and then that's all one. Is it one? Well, you said it was separate parcels. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's separate parcels, and then after going through some of the zoning and the ordinances, we can subdivide that down to 5 acres. However, if we go with a mobile home park, we won't need to subdivide it. We just put the utilities and infrastructure in place and start putting homes on there.
Yeah, for sure. That's one way to do it.
Yep.
Absolutely. So let me pivot to a second. I know you mentioned earlier when we were talking that you closed the mobile home park in Arizona just at the end of the year,
Mhm.
last year in 2023. And we all know like how difficult the market is the end of last year. I would love to hear the acquisition, what type of financing, anything you want to share on the numbers for that deal in Arizona.
Yep. Yeah, the Arizona deal, I went quite a while. I had a deal fall through, and things weren't quite flowing as quickly as I'd like them to. I had to get my team busy. I wanted to keep them busy and keep them on momentum, right? So this one didn't quite check all of the boxes, but with the owner financing, that's where a few of the other boxes that didn't get checked was justifiable. This one was $150,000. It's 6.5 acres. It had 16 prepped sites for homes, and there's currently 3 on there right now. I negotiated that one to 20,000 down. He's carrying the note at 10% for 5 years. So, like, all the terms were just great, and the 3 homes that are on there, park-owned homes, so I got to get rid of those. But the 3 homes on there right now are making the payment. So I mean, it was breaking even right out of the gate. Now I just got to bring in some more homes and get it cleaned up. Um,
So
it's
how did you get the seller to agree to seller terms in the negotiation?
I'd seen it on some Facebook groups for a while, and nobody was buying it. Nobody was buying it, and eventually, I'm like, you know what? I've seen this too many times to not reach out to him and see what's going on with it and offer him some owner financing and see what he says. And he almost immediately went for it.
So was that the first offer with owner financing terms, or were you backing yourself up from maybe a traditional sale?
No, that was as far as that wasn't my first offer for an owner term, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, did you first offer maybe cash or financing, and then maybe sometimes people are just want too much for their property a little bit more, and
Mhm.
it's like, look, I can't underwrite it with a loan at this, but if you owner finance it to me at this, A, you get to save the taxes, B, you get some
Okay.
cash flow. Like, how did that negotiation work to get him to agree to that?
I mean, it was a couple minute phone call of, hey, would you accept owner terms? I didn't ever submit an offer to him as an all cash offer or anything like that. I just saw it on there, had been on there for a while. He
Oh,
wanted he wanted 20%. He wanted 20% down, so he wanted 30, and I was just like, hey, would you do 20? Gave me an extra 10 grand for like closing costs and maybe clean the property up a little bit. So the entry barrier of 20 to 25,000, that one I just couldn't turn down.
no, definitely
No.
not. Because you said 150,000. How many units were on there?
There's 3 homes on there.
Okay.
There's 13 more sites to hook up. There's 13
So,
more pads.
so it's a total of like a 16 units.
Yep.
And that's a mobile home park or an RV park?
It's a mobile home park.
Wow.
Yep. And it's pretty rural. I mean, it's 45 minutes east of Tucson, and it's pretty rural, but I put a few ghost ads out before we closed the property, and my manager had 5 to 7 responses looking for places to live. So there's a demand for it in the area, and we just got to put the work in and get it cleaned up a little bit, get a few
Okay.
homes out there.
You kind of pivoted into my next point. I was
Yeah.
also curious about how you do handle management. Do you self-manage? Do you have a team? Do you just go hire third parties? How does that work?
So I hired right at the top instead of within my business. So I didn't hire an assistant to do some of the day-to-day stuff. I just hired an executive assistant right at the top, and I funnel everything through her. After that, she'll do the on-site management, hiring and firing and scheduling contractors, and everything funnels through her. So really, that's kind of a key point in this whole thing, where I'm delegating all these tasks to one person, and then she delegates beyond.
And I'm assuming that if anybody has a repair request or something, that they reach out to her.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And you're just making the last minute decisions. I'm assuming, like, if it's, more than $500, let me know, and you're like yes or no, or how can we do this different? You're just making those decisions.
Exactly. And over time, she learns more and more how I would respond to certain things. So she just takes initiative and she'll just do them. But every once in a while, she's like, "Hey, we haven't quite run into this. What do you think?" So I kind of open that up to her, and the more I do, the better it
Yeah.
works for me.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Okay. So, do you have any deals under contract that you're maybe looking for investors for? I'd love to hear about that if you do.
Yeah, that was the RV park down in Idaho.
Okay,
Fifth,
so please tell me, give me a rough of the pitch deck.
yep, the RV park down. It's in Mackay, Idaho. It serves like the Salmon, Idaho area. It's 50 acres total. The park sits on 5 acres. You've got 30 RV sites with full pull-through hookups, and you've got 2 cabins. There's ATV trails off the back of the property. You've got a pavilion, and there's a wash station for the ATVs in the back and the front office. But that one, we're seeking 300,000 with a $50,000 minimum. So we don't need the full amount all in one chunk. So 300,000, 50K minimum, 15% interest paid monthly, as well as divvying up the 40% equity among the 300,000.
So I assume, since the raise is not that big in the grand scheme of things, that you're probably doing this. This is just a question, I guess. Are you doing this more of a JV, or is this a traditional syndication?
More of a JV.
Yeah,
Yep.
I figured. Yeah,
Yep.
that's awesome.
I actually had one guy, I think I've got the first 100K secured. We met up the other day, and he's like, I've got about 120 to work with. It's making, I think he said around 8% period, no equity, or anything like that. No depreciation that I know of. So he's going to move it out of that and put into this, and almost double his return every month with the depreciation tool in there, as well as the equity. Because this project, pretty conservatively, the exit strategy in 5 years is showing a 7-figure proceed.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So
Mhm.
you have a rough valuation, what you're thinking. Well, how
Yep.
long is the term?
The term of the loan, that would be negotiable,
Okay,
yeah, so 2-year minimum, preferably.
sure. So if I gave you 50 grand after 2 years, you can cash me out theoretically. Will
Oh
I
yeah.
lose any depreciation or lose any? Obviously I'll lose the equity, I'm assuming, right? If I want to cash out early.
If you wanted to cash out early, yes, you would just essentially be selling your position. But if we did a refi in 2-year, the 2-year mark refi on this is showing a refi proceed of a couple hundred. It's like between 200,000 and 250,000 in refi proceeds, and that's paying off the 300K to the investors. So we do a refi, get a couple hundred to divvy up between all of us, and then everybody maintains their ownership for the life of the deal.
Okay, I was just going to ask you that. So you're not
Yep.
refining the investors out, you're keeping them in if they want to stay in, I'm assuming.
Right. The refi would just be to get the investors paid off and to get a little bit of cash in the bank, but they maintain their 40%.
No, that's incredible.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, what else could you share about those units, or anything that we haven't covered? Since my knowledge is kind of limited, I want to make sure that we catch everything that you want to talk about.
I think we covered a lot of the projects right now. We didn't really go into the bar and the motel in Spirit Lake, Idaho.
Tell me all about. Let's start with the motel. Tell me the motel, like how the acquisition, the numbers, and all the plan.
It was actually the sale of the bar and the motel was a boyfriend and girlfriend at retirement age. The girlfriend
Same,
owned.
same. Oh, this is the same property, the motel and the bar.
No, it was a boyfriend. The boyfriend owned the bar. Excuse me. The girlfriend owned the bar. The boyfriend owned the motel. I went to I went to dinner to talk to the lady about buying her bar, and the boyfriend was there, and he's like, "Well, I got the motel too," and all of a sudden I've got an offer on both, but they're both same deal. It was 15% down, owner carried the note at, I think she carried it at like 4% interest for 5 years.
Wow.
Mhm.
Nice.
The motel was the good one. That one I would buy over again. My wealth management mentor at the time said he was happy for me about buying the bar. Hey, you're making big moves, but he said, "Man, I bought a bar once. It would have been cheaper to throw a 2-year kegger, but it's the
Well,
bar,
you've got people that invest in real estate, and then you have wealth managers who usually don't invest in real estate.
right, right." I was just giving it a hard time. I mean, the bar was it was a sports bar. I mean, it was family friendly, and it had the NFL Sunday ticket and had a great menu, but there was 12 employees rotating for a very limited NOI. You know, you had hiring and rehiring and retraining.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
bar.
And
So,
it, and
sorry.
the equipment was just so expensive to maintain and upkeep. That was it was it was a necessary step because that brought me to the motel, you know.
Oh
I
yeah.
wouldn't have otherwise gotten there, but
Did you exit out of either of these yet, or you still have ownership?
I sold my shares of both of those.
Nice.
Yep. Yep. I sold my shares of both of those and then basically took the next step into more units, more
Yeah, I'm
multi.
assuming the bar, the licensing for liquor license, and the rules, and it is pretty risky to do a bar for sure.
It is
If
like
you're not full time, 80 hours a week watching everything, in my opinion. Just because I'm
yep.
from the restaurant business, and I've seen it all when it comes to bars.
Yep. Yeah. It really was a hands-on all the time. I mean, I was there way too often. I mean, that
Right.
really got in the way of scaling everything,
Oh
you know.
yeah. Okay. Well, where
Mhm.
can people find you? Especially where can people find out about that deal if they want to invest?
So I've got the rough terms right now sitting on my landing page. It's castlehaveninvestments.com. It's going to have the rough terms right there. We're going to finish the underwriting a little bit more complete over the next week. We've got a few more items to check off the list, and then we can actually blast out a full deal offering. But to get the rough idea of it, yeah, it's sitting on Rick my email is Rick at Castlehaven Investments for any questions, and then castlehaveninvestments.com, and it'll have a little bio on a little portfolio, a few things I've done.
Awesome.
Yeah. Also on the website, it'll have a subscribe button. It'll if you subscribe on the website, it'll show you all the deals we're working with. You know, maybe like one every week or one every 2 weeks. It'll say, hey, either we're considering this deal, or hey, we've got this under contract. We're ready to take on LV or LPs. So.
Beautiful.